中国的经济灾难，人口下降。事件概述：2024年初，中国正面临着前所未有的人口下降危机。据国家统计局数据显示，截至2023年底，中国人口为 14.09 亿，比2022年减少了208万。这一人口下降标志着连续第二年出现负增长，且降幅较2022年的85万大幅增加。伴随这一现象的是，生育率降至每千人 6.39， 接近日本和韩国等发达东亚国家的水平。专家们普遍认为，人口下降的根源在于长期的生育政策、经济负担和文化观念的转变。关键数据与趋势：中国的生育率自上世纪80年代实行计划生育政策以来持续下降。根据统计数据，2022年生育率降至 1.18， 远低于维持人口稳定所需的 2.1， 尤其是在生育年龄段15至49岁内，性别比例失衡使得生育潜力受到限制，男性数量大幅超过女性，造成了生育率的进一步下降。人口政策的演变：中国的计划生育政策始于上世纪70年代，1980年代实施的一孩政策成为国家的主要人口控制手段。然而，随着社会经济的发展，出生率持续下降，政府在2015年放宽政策，允许生育2个孩子，并在2021年进一步放宽至3个孩子。这些政策尽管旨在提高出生率，但其实际效果却微乎其微。经济与文化因素：经济压力是导致年轻人推迟生育的主要原因之一。在中国，抚养一个孩子的成本几乎是人均 GDP 的7倍，这使得许多年轻人感到负担沉重。再加上社会保障和医疗保障水平较低，许多年轻女性因职业发展的考虑，选择不结婚或推迟生育。此外，现代家庭更倾向于追求高质量的生活和教育，导致人们更愿意集中精力在一个孩子身上。政策应对与展望：面对人口危机，中国政府已开始采取措施，包括提供经济补贴和住房优待，以鼓励生育。然而，由于生育年龄女性的减少，这些政策的有效性受到限制。预计到2035年，退休人口将增加 60%， 这将对医疗和养老金系统带来更大的压力。未来的挑战：许多专家认为，中国的生育率下降和人口结构变化将对经济增长产生深远影响。劳动力短缺问题日益凸显，政府正在考虑通过机器人化和技术进步来应对这一挑战。此外，中国的经济增长正在经历结构性转型，人口下降将使得这一转型更加复杂。结论：中国的人口下降现象是一个复杂的社会经济问题，其根源深植于历史的生育政策和现代的经济文化背景中。尽管政府已采取一系列措施来缓解这一危机，但实际效果仍需时间检验，未来的挑战依然严峻。人口危机不仅影响经济增长，还将对社会结构、家庭观念及国家政策带来深远的影响。
The content presents several counterintuitive insights regarding China's demographic and economic challenges. 1. Demographic crisis versus economic growth. While a declining population typically signals economic decline, the narrative suggests that China's economy might still manage to transition effectively despite demographic challenges. Some experts argue that as the population becomes more educated and skilled, the focus shifts from manufacturing to service industries which may not rely as heavily on a large workforce. This could imply that a smaller, more educated population might sustain or even enhance economic productivity in certain sectors. 2. Cultural adaptation. There's a belief that cultural shifts towards valuing quality of life and family dynamics are at odds with government pronatalist policies. The expectation that financial incentives alone can reverse declining birth rates may overlook deeper cultural changes such as shifting aspirations among young people regarding marriage and parenthood. suggesting that government efforts might be insufficient in addressing these underlying societal values. 3. Government policy effects. The assumption that lifting restrictions on childbirth from one-child to three-child policies would naturally lead to increased birth rates is challenged by the observed limited impact of these policies. This indicates a disconnect between policy intentions and societal realities where economic and lifestyle considerations weigh more heavily than governmental incentives. For economic and social expectations, the expectation that economic growth can compensate for a shrinking workforce is countered by the reality that economic pressures like high living costs and low social security lead families to postpone or forego having children, thus creating a paradox where economic prosperity does not correlate with population growth. The pressure of modern urban life appears to outweigh traditional incentives for larger families. 5. Misinterpretation of data. There is a suggestion that official statistics may not present the full picture of China's demographic situation. For instance, some demographers argue that population decline may have begun earlier than officially reported. This points to a potential underestimation of the severity of the crisis, which conflicts with government narratives. 6. International comparisons. The narrative implies that while China's situation resembles those of other developed nations facing population decline, the implications for China are more severe due to its unique historical policies and current socio-economic structures. This suggests a more complex interplay of factors than simply following the trends observed in other countries, highlighting that the solutions may not be directly transferable. 7. Governmental awareness. There appears to be a gap in the government's urgency in addressing the demographic crisis, as it receives relatively little attention in political discourse compared to economic growth. This suggests a potential misalignment of priorities where long-term demographic challenges are sidelined in favor of immediate economic concerns. 8. Immigration as a solution. The expectation that immigration could help mitigate labor shortages is challenged by the fact that China is not an attractive destination for migrants. This counters the assumption that increased immigration could be a straightforward solution to balance the declining birth rate and labor shortages. These insights reveal a complex and interwoven set of challenges facing China that defy simple correlations between demographics and economic performance, indicating a need for multifaceted approaches to policy and societal change. The report on China's demographic crisis reveals several significant yet often overlooked aspects that have profound implications for the country's future. Here are some of the critical points that merit deeper consideration. 1. Historical context of population policies. A crucial element often overlooked is the historical context of China's population policies, particularly the long-term effects of the one-child policy introduced in the 1980s. The policy was a drastic measure to control overpopulation, but its ramifications have unfolded over decades. The societal shift towards smaller families has been deeply ingrained, leading to cultural changes that prioritize quality of life over quantity of offspring. This historical backdrop is significant because it shapes current attitudes towards childbirth and family planning, impacting the effectiveness of recent policy shifts towards encouraging larger families. 2. Economic burdens and child-rearing costs. The economic implications of child-rearing in China are staggering. The report highlights that the cost of raising a child is nearly 7 times the per capita GDP, a burden that significantly deters young couples from having more children. This economic pressure is exacerbated by inadequate social safety nets and rising living costs, particularly in urban areas. Understanding the financial landscape is crucial because it directly influences family planning decisions. As young adults prioritize financial stability, the shift in values towards career advancement over starting families becomes clearer, indicating a systemic issue that cannot be resolved merely by offering incentives. 3. Gender imbalance and its consequences. The persistent gender disparity in the reproductive age group, stemming from historical preferences for male children, remains a critical yet often understated element of the demographic crisis. With millions more men than women, the potential for family formation is inherently limited. This imbalance not only affects birth rates but also has broader social implications, including increased competition for partners and potential social unrest. The significance here lies in recognizing that gender imbalances are not just demographic figures, they represent a social challenge that could lead to instability and affect economic productivity as well. 4. Cultural shifts and changing attitudes. The cultural transitions among young Chinese adults reflect a broader global trend but are unique in their manifestation. Many young people are rejecting traditional family structures, opting instead for personal freedom and self-fulfillment. This cultural shift, often dismissed as a temporary trend, has profound implications for the future workforce and economic productivity. The report underscores how these cultural attitudes are at odds with government pronatalist policies, suggesting that no amount of financial incentives can alter deeply rooted beliefs about family and career. 5. Aging population and economic implications. The impending demographic shift towards an aging population is another crucial aspect often overlooked. The report notes that by 2035 the number of retirees is expected to surge, placing immense pressure on healthcare and pension systems. This demographic transition not only strains social services but also threatens economic growth as the working-age population declines. The significance here is twofold. It highlights the urgent need for reforms in healthcare and pensions and emphasizes the potential for a shrinking labor force to stifle economic dynamism. 6. Global context and international relations. The demographic crisis in China is not merely a national issue, it has global ramifications. The report discusses how these demographic challenges could shift China's international posture, particularly in terms of its geopolitical ambitions. As the workforce shrinks and domestic pressures mount, there may be a tendency to adopt more aggressive foreign policies to secure resources and influence. Understanding this context is vital as it frames China's demographic challenges within broader geopolitical dynamics influencing global stability and economic relations. 7. Government response and effectiveness. The report points out the inadequacy of government policies aimed at reversing the population decline. Despite initiatives such as subsidies and relaxed family planning restrictions, the actual impact has been minimal. The significance of this lies in the realization that demographic issues require long-term multifaceted strategies rather than short-term fixes. The disconnect between government intentions and societal realities underscores the complexity of addressing demographic challenges in a rapidly changing socio-economic landscape. 8. Potential for technological solutions. The exploration of technological advancements such as automation as a response to labor shortages is an intriguing point. While it presents a potential solution to some economic challenges, it also raises questions about the future of employment and the social fabric. The significance here is in recognizing that technological solutions cannot replace the need for a balanced demographic structure. As industries increasingly rely on automation, the necessity for a healthy growing population becomes even more critical to sustain economic growth and innovation. In summary, the report on China's population decline encompasses a myriad of interconnected issues, from historical policy impacts to cultural shifts, economic burdens, and technological adaptations. Each of these elements contributes to a complex and pressing demographic crisis that demands comprehensive understanding and innovative solutions. The often overlooked aspects highlight the need for a nuanced approach to policymaking that considers both the socio-economic realities and the cultural context in which these demographic changes are occurring. 1. Historical context of population policies. The roots of China's current demographic crisis can be traced back to its historical population control measures, particularly the one-child policy implemented in the 1980s. This policy was aimed at curbing rapid population growth but has resulted in long-term demographic imbalances, such as a skewed gender ratio and an aging population. The government's subsequent attempts to reverse this trend by introducing a two-child policy in 2015 and a three-child policy in 2021 have had limited success in increasing birth rates. This historical perspective is crucial for understanding the complexities of China's current demographic challenges and the inadequacy of recent policy responses to stimulate significant changes in fertility rates. 2. Economic implications of population decline. China's declining population brings significant economic ramifications, including labor shortages and increased pressure on social welfare systems. As the working-age population diminishes, the dependency ratio, where fewer workers support more retirees, will strain pension and healthcare systems. Projections indicate that the retiree population will surge by 60% by 2035, exacerbating these challenges. Additionally, the rising costs associated with child rearing, estimated to be nearly 7 times the per capita GDP, create barriers for young couples considering starting families. This economic context highlights the urgency for effective policy measures to address not only birth rates but also broader socio-economic conditions that influence family planning decisions. 3. Cultural shifts and changing attitudes. The decline in birth rates is intertwined with profound cultural shifts among China's younger generations. Many young adults prioritize career advancement, financial stability, and personal fulfillment over traditional family structures. The pressures of modern urban living, coupled with a desire for high-quality education and living conditions for children, have led to a preference for smaller families. Furthermore, the traditional patriarchal marriage model discourages many women from marrying and having children. Understanding these cultural dynamics is essential for formulating policies that resonate with the aspirations of the younger population and effectively promote family growth. For government responses in future outlook, the Chinese government has initiated various measures to counteract the declining birth rate, such as financial incentives, housing benefits, and campaigns promoting family values. However, the effectiveness of these policies is hampered by the shrinking pool of women of reproductive age and the economic realities faced by young couples. As the government grapples with these demographic challenges, there is a growing consideration for alternative strategies, such as automation and technological advancement, to compensate for labor shortages. The future of China's demographic landscape hinges on the ability of policymakers to navigate these complexities and implement adaptable strategies that address both immediate and long-term challenges. 1. Japan's demographic crisis. Japan has been facing a significant population decline since the late 20th century, primarily due to low birth rates and an aging population. The country's birth rate fell below the replacement level of 2.1 in the 1970s and has remained low ever since, hovering around 1.4 in recent years. The Japanese government has implemented various policies to encourage higher birth rates, such as financial incentives for families and improved parental leave, but these have had limited success. As a result, the population is projected to decline from approximately 126 million in 2020 to around 88 million by 2065, significantly impacting the economy, labor force, and social systems. 2. Italy's aging population. Italy is experiencing a demographic crisis characterized by low birth rates and an aging population. The fertility rate has been below the replacement level for decades, currently around 1.3 children per woman. This trend has led to a shrinking workforce and increased pressure on the pension and healthcare systems as the proportion of elderly citizens rises. The Italian government has attempted to address the issue through various family-friendly policies and incentives, but the effectiveness of these measures remains limited. Projections suggest that Italy's population could drop from approximately 60 million in 2020 to around 47 million by 2100, raising concerns about economic sustainability and social welfare. 3. Russia's population decline. Russia has faced demographic challenges marked by population decline since the early 1990s, exacerbated by high mortality rates, low birth rates, and emigration. The total fertility rate in Russia fell below the replacement level in the 1990s. And while it temporarily increased in the 2000s due to government incentives, it has since stagnated around 1.5. The Russian government has implemented various measures to encourage childbirth, such as maternity capital benefits and housing assistance, but demographic recovery has been slow. The population is projected to decrease significantly, which poses challenges for economic growth, labor supply, and social stability. China's population decline presents a multifaceted crisis with far-reaching implications for the nation's economy, social fabric, and global standing. As of 2023, China recorded a population drop to 1.409 billion, marking the second consecutive year of decline. This trend is predicted to continue, potentially leading to a significant demographic shift by 2100. Key factors influencing population decline. 1. Historical policies. The legacy of the one-child policy implemented in the 1980s has had long-lasting effects. Despite the government's attempts to reverse this policy by allowing up to 3 children as of 2021, the birth rate remains critically low, currently at 6.39 per 1,000 people, comparable to other East Asian nations like Japan and South Korea. 2. Economic burdens. The high cost of living coupled with inadequate social safety nets poses a significant deterrent to childbearing. Raising a child in China can cost nearly 7 times the average per capita GDP, leading many young couples to delay or forego having children altogether. 3. Cultural shifts. Young people increasingly prioritize career advancement and personal fulfillment over starting families. Modern couples are often hesitant to marry or have children due to concerns about balancing family life with professional aspirations. 4. Gender imbalance. A significant gender disparity exists within the reproductive age group, with a surplus of males due to historical cultural preferences for sons. This imbalance limits the potential for marriage and childbirth. Economic implications. The economic ramifications of this demographic shift are profound. Labor shortages. As the working age population continues to shrink, China faces a growing labor shortage. The peak of this demographic group occurred in 2011, and by 2035 the dependency ratio, the ratio of dependents to the working age population, could drop to as low as 1.22, complicating economic sustainability. Increased dependency. The number of retirees is expected to increase by 60% by 2035, intensifying pressure on healthcare and pension systems. This shift will require significant government resources, potentially straining the economy further. Technological adaptation. In response to labor shortages, China is likely to accelerate investments in automation and robotics. This technological shift may mitigate some immediate labor concerns but could also drive up unemployment in low-skill sectors, further complicating the economic landscape. Future outlook. 1. Population projections. If current trends continue, projections suggest that China's population could fall below 770 million by 2100. Such a decline would fundamentally alter the nation's demographic structure, leading to a smaller, older population with potentially severe consequences for economic growth and social stability. 2. Policy responses. The Chinese government may continue to implement pronatalist policies, including subsidies and housing benefits for families with more children. However, the effectiveness of these measures is uncertain, as cultural attitudes and economic realities pose significant barriers. 3. Global positioning. As China grapples with its demographic crisis, its global competitiveness may wane. The shift in population dynamics could impact China's ability to project power and influence internationally, particularly in the context of its rivalry with India, which has overtaken China as the world's most populous nation. 4. Social stability. A shrinking population, combined with rising economic pressures and an aging populace, may lead to increased social unrest. The government's ability to maintain social stability amidst these challenges will be crucial. 5. International relations. The demographic crisis may encourage China to adopt more aggressive foreign policies as a means of asserting its power before its demographic window closes. This could lead to heightened tensions in regions like Taiwan and the South China Sea. Conclusion. China's population decline is not merely a demographic issue, it is a complex challenge that intertwines economic sustainability, social welfare, and international relations. while the government has initiated policies to counteract the decline. The effectiveness of these measures remains to be seen. The future will demand innovative solutions to navigate the intertwined economic and social challenges posed by a rapidly aging and shrinking population. The trajectory of China's demographic crisis could redefine not just its domestic landscape but also its role on the global stage in the coming decades.